Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and this is my first impressions look on the Adidas Dame 9. So this shoe has finally been released. We've been knowing what this shoe is gonna look like for the past year and a half, and the Dame 8, Damian Lillard's 8th signature shoe, his last shoe came out in 2022. So it's been more than 2 years since his last signature shoe came out. And of course, at the beginning of this year, the Dame 8 extended play came out. And that shoe was a pretty big disappointment in my personal opinion. It's heavier, it's bulkier, especially with the added strap, and the material quality just wasn't as good. So yeah, I mean, this is the Dame 9. Of course, this is the Bape collab, and I got both colorways. I woke up early for the draw, and I thought it was going to be pretty hard to get, so I entered both draws, and I ended up getting both of the pairs. The collab retails for 160 bucks, but the retail price of the Dame 9 is supposed to be 120 bucks, which is reduced from the Dame 8. The Dame 8, I believe, was like 130 bucks, or some colorways were like 120, 130 bucks. So a shout out to Damian Lillard for keeping his signature shoes on the cheaper side of things, because you know this is the Dame 8 and also the Dame 9, and after like 5 or 6 signature shoes in their signature shoe lineup, athletes usually up their price, improve the tech, and and they make it a little bit more expensive. But Damian Lillard is keeping his shoes on the cheaper side of things for the people, so shout out to him. But yeah, it is not available yet like on Adidas.com, like the regular kind of retail general release Dame 9. So if you do want to cop the Dame 9, I'll try to leave in the free link in the description box for like StockX or GOAT. But let's get it started right off with the traction. So the traction is pretty interesting. It's kind of like just curved lines almost, pretty much, and they're kind of like serrated as well, and they are kind of separated here where the ball of your foot is, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, the traction, how does it feel on my wood floors? It feels pretty good so far. There is a nice bite. However, it reminds me a little bit of the Jordan 31, right? So when I try to stop going forward, it kind of hits the ground and then kind of slides forward just a tiny bit. So we'll have to see. I mean, that's just on my wood floors. It might perform differently once I break it in, or actually just go to the basketball court and play in it. But just right now, for my first impressions, it seems to be sliding just a tiny bit. But also, like on lateral movements, it seems to be a good bite. So it's kind of weird, you know what I mean? But of course, I'll have to fully test it for that. But also another thing that I really like about this rubber compound is that it's extremely loud and super freaking squeaky, which of course has nothing to do with performance, but I feel like, you know, a lot of hoopers, most hoopers like to have a loud squeak, including me. So I'm telling you guys, this shoe has a very nice loud high-pitched squeak, and both of these colors actually have a very nice loud high-pitched squeak. So there's that. And also moving on to the durability, I definitely don't feel like it'll be the best, right? So the grooves are kind of thin and the rubber is actually kind of soft. Just kind of like moving it with my finger, it feels pretty pliable, so I don't think it'll be the best on outdoor court. So I'll probably stay away from using this shoe on an outdoor court. But yeah, as far as my first impressions go, it's feeling pretty good so far. It's just I'm a little bit worried about kind of like sliding out a little bit, you know? So, and also here in the forefoot, we have a kind of like a flex groove, and then we have his logo here in the middle of the outsole, and then also kind of like another slit here in the heel. And also through this semi-translucent outsole, it's kind of a little bit easier to see in this colorway. We have kind of like this infinity symbol, or kind of like the 8 shape, and we can see this plate, right? And segueing into heel to toe transition, it does feel a little bit stiff, right? So the overall shoe is pretty dang stiff, especially the upper, right? So here in the heel, it's kind of flat. It's a pretty flat shape, right? And then we have a little bit of a rounded shape, but also it's a it's very exposed for the midsole. And we have light strike, of course. It is cage here in the back of the heel, but we do have nice compression, so it's actually kind of soft here in the heel. But then here in the forefoot, it's a pretty flat shape actually. Look at that. You know what I mean? And comparing it to a shoe that has a lot of like a rocker shape here in the forefoot is like the Curry 12, which is just insane. You know what I mean? So you put a little bit of weight here into the forefoot. It just makes you go on your toes. It just feels a little bit better for shooting in my personal opinion. And I like a really exaggerated rocker shape. You know what I mean? As opposed to like Dame 9, which is a little bit more flat. You can see like the entire sole of the shoe is pretty much in contact with the ground. So it's just on personal preference. It's not that one is better or worse. So yeah, it's just a little bit flatter, but also it is kind of stiff. You know what I mean? And with this plate, I thought it would be a little bit springier feeling, but it's just really stiff, right? I have to put a good amount of force here into the forefoot to actually bend the shoe. There seems to be a little bit of kind of like a rebound or springiness to it. But for the most part, it is pretty stiff. But I do like how they added these kind of like slits as well, right? In this plastic on the lateral and also on the medial side. So it kind of like when you scrunch it up, it gives you a little bit of extra room for the upper to kind of like flex, you know. So the overall heel to toe transition, it feels kind of stiff. So there's that. Moving on to the cushioning setup, they're using full length light strike, right? So here on the lateral side, the light strike is exposed, of course, but it is a little bit more caged than the medial side, right? So on the medial side, this is all just light strike, right? That's just fully unadulterated, full on exposed light strike here. And also this is light strike too, super duper soft, right? But on the lateral side, where this part is, this is all plastic, right? This part's plastic, and it's just like on top here, right? And you can see this line, it separates the plastic from the actual light strike. And on the bottom part here, that's light strike, right? So here in the heel, we have a good amount of compression and it's actually soft. And comparing it to the Dame 8, the Dame 8 used Bounce Pro, and Bounce Pro is freaking, it was just too much for me. You know, it was really soft. It had pretty bad court feel. So coupling all of that with also the lackluster traction on dust, I didn't really feel quick playing in a Dame 8, right? It just wasn't a responsive shoe to me. And also this mesh material is like on the softer side of things. So yeah, I didn't like that. But then they changed it up here in the Dame 9. So it actually has improved court feel. You have better court feel. You feel lower to the ground than the Dame 8, which I think is definitely an improvement. However, it's not the best for court feel, right? So comparing it to a shoe that has really good court feel like the Sabrina 2s, it doesn't feel as low to the ground as those, but it still has pretty good court feel, which I do like, with the extra compression here in the heel, which is super duper nice. And also, as far as the step and comfort goes, the step and comfort isn't very nice, right? So first of all, the insole is very, very thin and very, very stiff. So you're not really getting any type of step and comfort from that, and which of course isn't a huge issue, you know what I mean? Because for example, like in the Harden Volume 8, the Harden Volume 7, the AE1, the AE1 Low, those have kind of like the same insole, of course, but a softer strobo board. And also there is a circle cutout exposing the foam. So the step and comfort, especially in the heel, is really nice. You know what I mean? So it makes sense. Like if the insole was thicker, you wouldn't feel the actual foam as easily. So I don't really mind the thinner insole. However, here in the Dame 9, you have that crappy insole. And then underneath that, we have like a foam strobo board, but then like kind of pressing it with my finger, it's actually kind of stiff. And comparing it to like the Harden Volume 8, the AE1, and also shoes that have like a soft mesh strobo board, for example, like the DVD2 SE, the All CD12 Encore, which really greatly improves the step and comfort, the Dame 9 step and comfort and underfoot cushion isn't that nice right now, right? It's just my first impressions, of course. I didn't play in it yet. I just got these in today and I was just kind of like walking around in them. So step and comfort, of course, isn't as nice, but I have yet to break it in and play in it. Hopefully it does break in and get softer, but I don't think it'll get as nice as like a softer mesh strobo board, of course. But we have yet to see if it'll get a little bit better, right? But as far as the cushioning setup goes, it feels better than Dame 8 as far as like for guards and if you want something a little bit more responsive, but it definitely doesn't feel amazing for the cushioning setup, you know what I mean? So there is the cushioning setup there. Moving on to the upper, so the upper is absolutely insane, guys, right? So we have, I think in my personal opinion, it's just overkill, and it's just a night and day difference from the Dame 8. And I don't know, maybe Damian Lillard was like, I want something very different for the overall shoe because it feels night and day. It's just a really different overall feel of the shoe, you know what I mean? So obviously with the Dame 8, we have this really soft mesh material, and it's not like this material was like it's supportive in the way where it doesn't stretch, right? But it's soft, so then like it kind of rolls over on itself, so the overall support wasn't the best, you know what I mean? So coupling that with the really soft mushy cushion and lackluster traction on dust, I just didn't feel very quick here in the Dame 8, right? But the Dame 9, of course, they're using this leather, kind of like synthetic leather material, right? And it's really thick and it's super freaking stiff too. And also just, there's a lot of crease marks on it right now. You know what I mean? I didn't even play in it yet, which is kind of insane. But also, it's a triple layered material pretty much. So we have on the outermost layer, kind of like the shell of this leather material. And then underneath that, we have this kind of textile material. You know what I mean? And then underneath all of that, we have this neoprene inner booty, and it's a one booty upper, which I do like, but I definitely feel like it's overkill, right? So just like touching it, look at how stiff it is. Look at how stiff it is. You know what I mean? So just on foot, it's a really thick feeling upper, especially here in the toe box, and also it's not very comfortable. You know what I mean? And I definitely feel like maybe it'll probably break in, you know what I mean? But it'll never get as soft as like a mesh or a textile, especially here in the toe box. But it does feel extremely supportive, which I guess is a good thing. You know what I mean? But also this leather doesn't even seem that good quality. It seems like a synthetic leather material, you know? So not even that great for material quality, you know? We'll have to see on what the general release colorways like the upper is going to be, but in this collab, in these kind of colorways, it's not the best material. It's just too stiff for me personally. I don't really like it, you know? One thing I do like, however, is neoprene booty. It allows you to stretch open kind of like the tongue, and then you just slide your foot in like a sock, and it kind of stretches over your foot, which does improve the fit, and it feels pretty dang nice. I do like that, right? But I think it's a little bit too much, you know what I mean? I definitely feel like it's like here, even here in the midfoot, it's just super stiff and super freaking thick, you know? And also we do have kind of like the 3 stripes on the lateral and also on the medial side. We have the Bape logo, and also here on the lateral side as well, here in the heel, with this kind of like gold, right? And then for the tongue, we have the 3 stripes Adidas logo as well. And then here in the ankle area, with the neoprene material, it doesn't add that much kind of like foam or cushion, but on the outside there is another material, and that does feel pretty nice, and it feels pretty dang nice and cozy here in the heel, right? But on foot, I think it's a little bit too stiff for me right now. So there is the upper there. Moving on to the fit. So the fit is kind of weird for me, right? So I went true to size, and there definitely is a little bit of length, although the shoe is pretty freaking narrow, you know what I mean? It's not super narrow, it's not choking my foot out, but I can definitely feel the side of my pinky toe a little bit like being squeezed a little bit from this plastic piece. So just be careful with that. It's slightly narrow. And then also here in the toe box is actually not that snug, which is kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, it's a normal snugness here in the toe box. So yeah, if you have a really skinny foot and you want a really snug fit, then go down half a size, right? But for most people, I feel like you should be fine going true to size. It's just gonna be a little bit long, you know? And if you have a wide foot, probably go up half a size, but just be careful of the length. So there is the fit there. Moving on to the support and lockdown. So, oh my freaking gosh, this is overkill, I would say, for support. You know what I mean? So obviously for lateral containment, we have the plastic, right? So it's coming up here in the forefoot, and it's coming up a lot. So your foot is not coming out of the footbed really at all. And also here in the heel, we have an internal TPU heel calendar, but also this freaking upper is so supportive feeling. You know what I mean? It's basically a 3-layer material. It's super stiff. It's super thick. So yeah, the upper feels extremely supportive too. So lateral containment, the overall support of the shoe feels really good. And also lateral stability. Look at this, guys. Look at how wide the shoe is right here. So here in the forefoot on the lateral side, it protrudes out a good amount. So lateral stability feels like it's gonna be good. And also a heel slippage is not a thing, you know what I mean? And with how stiff this upper and also the overall shoe feels, you would feel if the heel containment wasn't good, your foot would come out of the shoe really easily, right? So that's just kind of like a testament to how good the heel lockdown is right now for the Dame 9, even with this kind of like stiffer shoe. So yeah, support and lockdown feel really good and even a little overkill for me. And now moving on to the weight, I mean, this shoe doesn't feel that light. I'm guessing like 13 ounces or something like that. Let's check this colorway. Comes in at 13.75 ounces. Let's check the other shoe. It comes in at 13.85 ounces. And let's check the red pair. 13.45 ounces, so like 0.4 ounces difference. That's kind of weird. And let's check this colorway, the other pair, 13.6 ounces. So I guess like average it out to like 13.65 ounces or so. But yeah, it's like an ounce heavier than average. The average weight of my shoes is around 12.5 ounces. So it's not super heavy. That's actually compared to the Dame 8. The Dame 8 is 12.8 ounces. So it's like an ounce heavier than the Dame 8, which is kind of crazy, you know? And I definitely feel like it has to do with the upper, because the upper is just so crazy and so thick. So yeah, it doesn't feel super heavy and really doesn't feel bulky, you know what I mean? Because it's not like nothing protrudes out like crazy, you know what I mean? But it is a thick upper, so it definitely doesn't feel super minimal, but also it is a pretty stiff feeling shoe right now. So I'm not a huge fan of that, you know what I mean? But we'll have to see on how it breaks in. Like for the traction, hopefully it breaks in. The cushion, hopefully it breaks in for the step and comfort. And also the upper, maybe it'll get a little bit softer. So yeah, and also aesthetically, I think it looks pretty dang good. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but now that I have it in hand, I definitely feel like it looks pretty good. You know what I mean? Especially this colorway. This colorway looks super duper sick with the green camo. And I definitely feel like it looks way better than the Dame 8. So tell us what you guys think of these settings down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah, I'm not liking it too much, honestly, right now. You know what I mean? It's just the upper. The upper is just too crazy. It's just too thick. But again, of course, that's just my first impressions, and we'll have to see on how it breaks in. And it might also just be this colorway, right? This collab. The general release colorways might have like a thinner or different material. Sometimes Adidas uses different materials too. But right now, with what I have with these two colorways, it's just too thick. It's just too stiff. The cushion is definitely feeling pretty nice, but nothing amazing, and we'll have to see on the traction. But the one strong suit about this shoe, of course, is the support, right? But anyways, that about concludes my first impressions look on the Dame 9. It definitely is an improvement from the Dame 8 in my personal opinion, but it's definitely not feeling amazing right now. So that about concludes this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.